Have you heard about Operation Artemis II? The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has just launched the first crewed mission to the Moon in more than 50 years. April 1, 2026. The Space Launch System rocket lifted off from Kennedy Space Center at 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time. On board 4 astronauts: Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The Artemis II mission is supposed to last about 10 days. They will fly around the Moon but will not land. This is officially a test before the next mission with a landing. It sounds like a grand return to the great days of Apollo. But why right now? Why did the launch happen on April Fool's Day? And why again only a flyby and not a real landing as they promised earlier? Maybe because they cannot actually land, just like in 1969. After Apollo 17 in 1972, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration suddenly forgot how to fly to the Moon. 54 years of silence. No crewed missions beyond low Earth orbit. Now, when China is actively preparing its lunar program with taikonauts landing by 2030, the United States is urgently returning. Artemis II looks like a remake of an old movie. The same problems with radiation in the Van Allen belts. The same explanations why stars are not visible in the footage. The same studio techniques that raise questions back in Apollo times. Why again only a flyby? Officially, this is a test before Artemis III with a landing in 2027 or 28. But the program delays have been dragging on for years. The Space Launch System rocket constantly suffers from hydrogen and helium leaks. Billions are spent on the budget while deadlines keep shifting again and again. The real reason for the rush is not science but a new space race. China plans to put its people on the Moon by 2030 or even earlier. Beijing has already conducted successful tests of the Lanyu lander and is preparing the Long March 10 rocket. The United States cannot allow the red flag to appear first on the lunar South Pole, where there is water in craters and valuable resources such as helium-3 and rare metals. The Artemis Accords are not a peace treaty but a way to rewrite space law in their favor and block competitors. Whoever is first is the owner of the Moon. This is not about exploration. This is about military superiority and resource extraction. But let us dig deeper. What if Artemis II is not just a flyby but a hidden operation? Why did all missions after 1972 suddenly stop? Maybe the Apollo astronauts were asked not to return because they saw something not meant for ordinary eyes. Old leaks from Apollo transmissions supposedly mention strange lights, structures, or objects on the far side of the Moon. Officially, all this is interference or imagination. But why does the National Aeronautics and Space Administration so carefully avoid showing a real landing live without edits? Artemis II flies around the Moon to check the territory before building a real base with the participation of SpaceX and other private companies. Huge amounts of money are spent not only on rockets. The Space Launch System is the most expensive and unreliable project in the history of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Constant delays due to technical problems. Maybe part of the budget is being spent on something else. Now about the most important thing. Many conspiracy theorists are sure that there is already something on the Moon that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration does not want to show to the general public. Ancient structures, artificial objects, or even traces of alien presence on the far side where Earth is never visible. Apollo 11 and 12 supposedly recorded unusual signals. Astronauts mentioned in closed negotiations glowing objects that moved on their own. After 1972, everything suddenly stopped. As if they were told enough. Now Artemis is not a return for the sake of humanity, but a rehearsal for a big show. They want to build a permanent base, but not for science, but for resource control and possibly for contact or confrontation with what is already there. Look at the numbers. The Artemis program has already cost tens of billions of dollars. Delays due to fuel leaks, problems with valves and life support systems. A rocket almost 100 meters high barely passes tests. Meanwhile, China is moving forward step by step without such hype. Artemis II is not a breakthrough. It is an attempt to show the flag before the rival overtakes them. But if the landing is postponed again or passes with strange interference, the questions will only grow. Why can they not repeat what they supposedly did in the 60s with much more primitive technology? The radiation of the Van Allen belts should have killed the crew without serious protection. The absence of stars in the footage. Perfectly even shadows in studio lighting. All this is repeating now. They say we are returning to the Moon for the future of humanity. In reality, this is a new race where the winner will take all the resources, military advantage, and possibly the secrets that are already hidden up there. Artemis II is not a real return. It is a carefully planned operation with elements of a show. The launch exactly on April 1st gives perfect cover. If something goes wrong, they can always say it was a joke. But we know what is behind all this. They are hiding not only technical problems, they are hiding the truth about what awaits us on the moon. The question for you: do you believe that this time everything is real, or is history simply repeating like in an old Hollywood movie? Artemis II is already on its way. The astronauts are flying around the moon. Soon we will see new footage. But will they be real or again edited to calm the public? Follow the mission. Follow the Chinese plans. And ask questions. Because if they cannot honestly show a landing, then there is something to hide. The moon has been keeping its secrets for thousands of years. And the National Aeronautics and Space Administration apparently is not ready to reveal them. If you woke up after this video, give it a like. Subscribe so you do not miss the breakdown of Artemis III. In the comments, write Artemis fake if you think this is a show, or the moon is already occupied if you feel it is not empty. The truth is somewhere up there, and it is closer than it seems.